Okay, the purpose of this video is to discuss the racketeering, the graft, the grift, the shrinkage, the flim-flam, the razzle-dazzle, the reverse, the capture the flag, we stole it fair and square. I want to show you, this is Tract A, the way they built it, and it's not original. This is an abortion, what you're looking at. That tract, you're supposed to be looking at a catch basin that runs from the manhole cover. Where this hand is, there's a manhole cover. There's supposed to be a drainage channel 16 feet wide at the sidewalk. That means 8 feet on each side of the manhole, that is supposed to be free of vegetation, free of anything that would impede water running through the tract. All my troubles with the HOA, I'm being sued right now by the HOA. I've got probably near $58,000 or $59,000 lien, along with the lawsuit. The lawsuit is for injunctive relief, and if they don't get it, they want to charge me $1,000 a day penalty. On top of, for a year and a half, I've been charged $100 a day fine from the HOA. These are people with ego problems. The people who live on each side of this easement had ego problems. Okay? There are people in that HOA that are small town bureaucrats who don't understand an urban living model. Now, the engineers that designed Parcel 12 about 23 or 24 years ago up in Scottsdale, the spirit of their design, the spirit of their effort, and the reason for all of their calculations was to make sure that all these neighborhoods that surround the golf course, which make up the adult community, that's all the different parcels. There's about 4 or 5 parcels on the front 9. I don't know how many on the back 9. I'm very familiar with the front 9. I went to Maricopa County and got the plat maps for all the parcels on the front 9. All the rules, all the language, and this right here is grossly out of compliance. Now, for the first 8 years that everybody was here, and still everybody was swilling the Kool-Aid. I mean, swilling the Kool-Aid and goose-stepping. Well, I was one of the original buyers in Parcel 12. In fact, this house, which is Lot 317, and my house 316, were the first 2 pads ever laid in this parcel of about 63 or 65 houses. And what you're looking at here is graft. Graft, as I understand it, if you read any dictionary as to the definition of graft. Graft is when you take something that belongs to everybody, a common benefit to everybody, and you privatize it. You co-opt it. You steal it. You flim-flam it. You disguise it. You turn it into an entitlement, 1,000-year forever entitlement. What you're looking at right here doesn't look like this anymore. As soon as I realized, and I want to tell you, this is ironic. AAM runs the HOA. They collect the money. They assign a manager who right now is Caroline Clinton. They had another manager before her named Pat Pence Young. Before Pat Pence Young, there was a guy named Golightly. They work for AAM. And they're the liaison with the board. Okay? I have to tell you right now, I'm kicked out of the HOA. I've been kicked out of the HOA for 7 years. And one of the reasons that I'm kicked out of the HOA and that nobody will talk to me at the HOA, no board member will talk to me at the HOA, and they've refused to talk to me for years over this. Okay? Pat Pence Young, I questioned her about my golf course access to the golf course. The day that I put an offer on this house right here was December 7th of 2003. Nothing was built up here. The only thing they had was infrastructure built. And what they had done is this was all open. And for the first month or two of the last months of 2003 or the first month of 2004, they had a temporary channel built here out to a temporary access easement that went up to the property line at the end of the easement. It was only there for a short period of time, and the reason it was there was to get a signature, to get a certified signature that they had a channel, they had started it, they didn't finish it. They had it all lined with plants to look like a channel, but it wasn't finished. They roughed it out, and then they sold it to an inspector. Some inspector came out, saw that it was a channel. They got so complacent and normalized with trusting each other. Good friends, probably grew up together, decided that, yeah, don't worry about it. Well, once they got their signature, their certified signature that it was built right, they filled it in. Okay? This is Graft. All right? This channel right here, when I found, what started all this is one house removed from this house, and my house right here, 316, one house removed from this house for about 3 weeks. They parked a green Mitsubishi SUV in front of this house over here, 24/7 for 3 weeks. Never moved. We had street sweepers coming through during that period of time. There was also a curfew during that period of time of parking on the street, And only a short time before that, like a year or two before that, a person moved into this house, and when they went to take back their 16-foot trailer with the furniture that held the furniture, when they took it back to a Buckeye storage unit at 8 o'clock on a Sunday evening, it was closed, or 9 o'clock. So the fella brought his empty storage unit and he parked it in this driveway. This was a Sunday night. By Monday morning at 8 o'clock, that unit was moved. He had taken it, he had to report to work out of Palo Verde nuclear plant. He was an engineer. He did overhaul. He only needed the house for about 6 months. He took the thing back the next morning and it was gone by 8 o'clock. On Wednesday, I had a letter in my mailbox for the trailer parked in my driveway. That was like a year or two before all this went down. But what started me and what turned me on to this drain, I didn't really realize it was a drain over here. All I know, when I moved in, the cart path that I thought I was going to have onto the golf course was gone. This tree wasn't only about 4 foot high. All these plants were all brand new. And this water valve here, you've got the doggy dispenser. This is an access easement. That's why they have the doggy dispenser there. That's anywhere that you have an overwater channel. But we don't have a channel. So the Lofdals, I'll tell who they were. The Lofdals had their SUV parked in front of this house for 3.5 weeks straight, never moved it. And I was a little sensitive about it because a 1.5 to 2 years earlier, I got a letter for a 16-foot travel trailer parked in my driveway for less than 12 hours. He brought it back about 9 o'clock at night. By 9 the next morning it was gone. And Hal Golightly sent me a letter. I had a letter in my mailbox 2 days later from Hal Golightly. So I knew Hal and I immediately approached him and I said, Hal, when did you see that? Oh, I saw it. I go, when? When did you see it? You had to drive around the neighborhood in your little yellow Ford Ranger. You had to be there, go through the neighborhood on your morning drive before 7:30, 8 o'clock to see it. Well, I saw it. Well, it was parked off the street, Hal. Why did I get a letter for something that's parked off the street? So I was a little sensitized to people with parking violations. And here the Lofdals put their green SUV in front of my house, parked on the street, right next to my driveway, for 3 weeks straight. Never moved it. Well, I was working graveyard at the airport, and I had to come home. I have to tell you, most of the people that worked at the airport live around the airport. They got a 10, 15-minute drive to go home. I had a half an hour, 40-minute drive every morning to get home. Working graveyard 10-hour shifts. I almost got killed at the Verado exit one morning when I fell asleep at the wheel. And I rode the Jersey barriers for about 200 feet and flattened one of my tires. When I pulled over, the only thing that was damaged was the tire and wheel. Those Jersey barriers are designed that if you fall asleep, your wheels are going to hit them first. And that's what happened. I hit it with my front wheel. It woke me up. I yanked the car off the road. And I wanted to see what damage. I knew I had just totaled my car. You couldn't believe the sound. That tire rubbing down the Jersey barrier. Well, I pulled over just before the Verado exit going west. And I had to get out of my car to see how much damage, how much of a new car I was going to have to buy. So I got out of the car and I couldn't see any marks on it. I couldn't believe it. So I kept backing up, half asleep, haven't even woke up yet. I kept backing up to see where the damage was. And this car almost ran me over. This guy doing about 75 through there, past the Verado exit, almost ran me over. Okay? So, it was a challenge to get home every morning. Half the mornings I was falling asleep at the wheel. I used to, and then I learned, I took a small bottle of espresso with me. So when I got off work, just before I got off work, I would do a cup of espresso, big cup of espresso, to get me home. So, thank you for listening to that. But, so the Loft Dolls had their SUV parked in front of my house for three weeks straight. And my friend, my girlfriend, we've been together on and off for 37 years. We're best of friends. Okay? She lived in this house. I lived in the other house next door that I own. And she made the comment to me one day, do you know whose truck that is out there? It's been out there for at least 2 weeks. And I knew who it was. It was the Loft Dolls. All right? So, well, I didn't know. I wasn't sure. So I went knocking on doors, and one of the first doors I knocked on was, let's see, what was 318, 320. Lot 320. Gary Ragone and his wife Miriam, I think Marion, okay, lived there. So I knocked on his door and I says, I came home one morning, I was dead tired, barely made it home, and again, there's that SUV I've been looking at every morning for 3 weeks straight, hasn't been moved, okay? So I decided I'll start door knocking, and like I said, Gary Ragone, I knocked on his door first, and he was very nice, very gentleman, courteous. I said, is that your truck? And he goes, no. He says, I think it's the people next door. I'm sure it's theirs. I said, thank you. So then I knocked on Ann Loftall's door. And I said, is that your vehicle? Yes. How about getting it out from in front of my house? I was very straight. How about getting your vehicle out from in front of my house? Well, she sort of gave me an excuse. It's my son's vehicle, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And then she started crying. I said, get it out from in front of my house. If I can get letters for having a trailer parked in my driveway for about 10 hours, and you're getting away with parking in front of my house for 3 weeks straight, move your car. Well, she cried and she moved her car. Within about 2 weeks, I had a letter in my file. Within 2 weeks, I had a letter in my file from Pat Pence Young over some storm doors, screen doors I had put on my house without permission. You got to understand that the first 2 or 3 years of a new HOA development, there's no HOA. There's no board of directors. There's no architectural committee. Like AAM, they had Hal Golightly out here keeping the peace. But let me tell you, while they're selling houses in an HOA, I got here, I was in the first 15-20% of anybody buying a house here. My pad and this pad were the first ones ever laid in all of Parcel 12, so we were here first. During the time when they're selling houses, they're very careful with their HOA rules, their plantation rules, okay? It isn't a plantation yet, okay? They're trying to sell houses, and the word is, leave these people alone. We don't need any rhetoric. We don't need any word of mouth telling prospective buyers that the HOA is picking on people. They're writing people up. They're doing things to people, making life miserable for them. Okay? That's the way it is for a couple of years. And because I was one of the most earliest people here, I didn't get a lot of letters for a lot of things. I could do more or less whatever I wanted to do to my lot, and I did it. Okay, I added a lot of things. The lighthouse that's in the lawsuit, that they've got labeled in the lawsuit, I bought that the first year I was here. In 2005 for $29. It weighs about 1 pound. It's made of foam. I can move it anywhere. I've got video where it's sit everywhere on my lot. I used to move it all the time. And when I got the letter for the lawsuit, they're saying that I've got it out on my line, I'm fined, I didn't pay the fine, I paid the fine, I moved it. I moved it back near my patio, nobody can see it. I want to interject here that this right here, I'm getting focused on a lot of stuff. I'm like Donald Trump. But this tree right here is 29 feet from there, from the manhole cover. It was 29 feet away. And with my water levels, I checked to see how high it was above the sidewalk at 29 feet from the sidewalk. It was 19.5 inches. The base of this tree was 19.5 inches above the manhole and the sidewalk. It's supposed to be about a foot below, and it's supposed to be a drainage channel going out to the end of the property, dropping all along the way and then feeding onto the golf course. It's supposed to collect not only water during a rainstorm, but any water that should back up in this drain. This catch basin, this drainage tract is supposed to have the water run into that. If there's any backup, if this gets overwhelmed, it's raining so hard that the 24-inch pipe can't keep up and it starts to back up, there's supposed to be a drainage channel here that routes the water onto the golf course, like a ground wire. Okay? This right here is electricity inside of an electric panel that is controlled. It has plumbing. All the water that is collected on the street, on the houses and everything in Parcel 12 is going to go through here. Just like in an electrical panel with Romex wire, everything is insulated, it's hooked up right, there's no loss, there's no shorts. Okay? Now, and every one of these houses represents a circuit breaker inside of that electrical panel. If you turned the whole Parcel 12 triangle and you tipped it up, this would be the ground wire that went from the electrical panel into ground. Now there's a lake out here, and the lake is labeled retention. Ultimate retention is the lake. There's also rules in the Maricopa County and Buckeye drainage manuals that you can't have intermediate retention basins between your assigned retention. That lake is a big ground sign. We got any plumber? Have we got any electricians out there? You know the sign for ground? That upside down triangle with horizontal lines in it? That's the lake. Okay? What they did here is they got rid of the ground wire. This wasn't going to be an access easement. They didn't want it to be an access easement. This person was from Colorado. This person's from Fremont, Nebraska. They have big land holdings. They're more or less, this was MAGA before MAGA. This was the Tea Party before Tea Party. This was, you're not going to replace us. This is white supremacy. This was nepotism. This was a bunch of good old boy lodge brothers here in Buckeye who, when they saw that somebody other than them had these lots up here, when they found out that not one of their good old boys or lodge brothers or old goats had their name on this lot, when they found out an outsider from San Francisco with a name, the only name, last name like mine in all of the state of Arizona, I'm the only one, all right? They said, he isn't one of us. He's a San Francisco, California investor. We're not going to do anything for him. He outbid us. So what they did is they went downtown and they lowered this house 2.5 inches. And they filled this in. When they filled this in, they changed a term. The term is ultimate outfall elevation. Ultimate outfall elevation on all manuals is when this drain, the only drain for 13 acres, if it backs up or fails and it doesn't drain anymore, where the water is going to leave the parcel first is the ultimate outfall elevation. Because this tree, the base of this tree was 2 inches higher than this floor and 3 inches higher than the floor here. This cactus was only about 8 or 10 inches above the manhole cover. So as the thought of any water leaving the parcel over this tract, no way. They plugged it up. Okay? Now, how I found out that this was a drain, I was totally naive. I was really busy. I bought this house. I had the 2 other houses that I had mortgages on. There was only me, and I was working graveyard. So I didn't have a lot of time to research all this, and I didn't have a lot of time to look into it. But about 2 weeks later, after I told Ann Lofdahl to get your SUV out from in front of my house, I had a letter for some front doors that I had put on my house about 3 years earlier, when there wasn't an HOA here, or hardly an HOA. We didn't have anybody elected yet on the board. Everything was being done by Hal Golightly, and Hal didn't say anything to me, okay, about putting them doors on the house. Like I said, they weren't out trying to discipline people. They were trying to sell houses. and they didn't want any reputation of harassing an HOA harassing homeowners yet until they sold everything. Get that through your head, especially people that buy into a brand new HOA where they've only sold a few houses. They've got 2,000 houses to sell and they've only sold 100. Get in and get out. Get in, enjoy the freedom you're going to have with your home and lot for about the first 4 or 5 years until they sell out. Once they get totally sold out and they get a board of directors established and an architectural committee, watch out. You've got some really damaged egos. One of the biggest human factors that has ruined my relationship with the HOA is jealousy. Jealousy. They had this house already sold to one of their old goats. Either they were waiting for him to lower the price, they were sticker shocked at $25,000 for a 5,500 square foot lot. They were either sticker shocked or they were expecting that Meritage was going to go back to the old price that they had a year earlier with the first phases of $15,000 apiece. I came from San Francisco and I immediately bought this house for cash on the assumption that I'm going to have this as a cart path, that I'm going to be playing golf a lot, and all I have to do is drive down here and I'm going to have a cart path onto the golf course. That's what they advertised. That's why they had that grouted riprap trail going from the tee box up to the property line, because they made everybody think that you're going to have a golf cart access. Well, it took about 10 months to close everything. I ordered this house April 7th. It closed on August 30th. I ordered the other two houses in March, and they closed in the middle of October. Okay? And this was gone. Or the access easement was gone. The temporary drain that they put in, when it was bought off and sold, they immediately pulled all the plants up and they filled it in. Then they planted it. The whole easement, they filled it in. There's a crown. This easement, the whole length, is higher than the houses. When it rains and falls on the easement, the water runs into a trough near this house and onto my yard. They took it out of service. It doesn't drain. The reason I found out about it when Charlie Waters, I feel it was Charlie Waters, when he found out that I made his friend Ann Lofdahl cry, he told Pat Pence Young, find whatever you can find to write him up for. Go through his whole yard. Whatever he's got that he didn't apply for, write him up. Well, I had 2 storm doors that I paid $99 each for. When my friend moved in, she thought, I can't open the door because I don't have a screen. Well, what was the alternative? Spending $1,500 for a steel door? I'm a carpenter. I'm an engineer. I'm very handy. And I went to Lowe's and I got 2 $99 screen doors. And I put on each one. And nobody said a word for 3 years. I did it while Hal Golightly was here. Hal Golightly didn't say anything to me for 3 years. Nobody said anything to me about those screen doors on both my houses for 3 years. They would send me my invoices. I didn't have fines on them for my door. I wasn't getting letters for fines for my door. But 2 weeks after I told Ann Lofdahl to get her truck out of my yard, out in front of my house, I got a letter for my screen doors. 3 years later, I finally get a letter for my screen doors. You never applied. You're out of compliance. So I wrote Pat Pence Young a letter, and I questioned her about this. I asked her, I said, the plat map indicates an access easement onto the golf course. It's a drain, it's an access, it's a utility easement. We're supposed to have, and she wrote back to me, which was a revelation. That's what's so ironic about AAM and their service. If Pat Pence Young, in her letter to me, hadn't told me that, I told her, I said, this is supposed to be an access easement. I bought these houses thinking I was going to be able, why isn't there an access easement? And she wrote me back a letter saying, it's not an access easement, it's a drain. And when the light went off, when she said it was a drain, bing, lights went off. It's a ground wire. It has to be there. So then I started looking at manuals and things like that. I went into an architectural meeting to get the letter. I applied for both doors. I made an application to have both doors. I turned the other cheek. I said, okay, I'll apply. And they were going to shoot him down. They were going to shoot him down until I went to the meeting. And they always tell you, whenever you give an application to an HOA, the first thing that comes out of their mouth is, you don't have to be there. You have a right to be there and you can be there, but we prefer that you not come, or you don't have to be there. Don't bother. Basically, what they're telling you is, we want to talk about you behind your back, and we don't want you to hear us. So we don't want you there. Okay? Well, I went to the meeting. So there was Pat Pence Young, Wayne Blair, Chuck Milosevic. And the first thing Wayne Blair pulls off the stack is these doors. Okay? Well, I had done a lot of research up to that point. I went and got the plat maps at the Maricopa County, downtown Phoenix. I started pulling up the manuals, any manual I could find on drainage for Buckeye and Maricopa County. I had and I had pictures. I had all this information under my arm when I went into the meeting that day, and Pat Pence Young, the first thing out of her mouth was, we're not looking at any of your material. Don't even bother opening it up. I had my computer. I was going to show her video. I was going to nope, we're not looking at it. We ain't got time to look at your video or your stuff. Well, anyway, they wanted me out of there immediately. So Wayne Blair pulled the two things off the top, the two applications, one for one house, one for the other, immediately signed them and more or less said, get the hell out of here. Okay? Well, I wanted to talk more about the drainage, how this has been filled in, how it doesn't even look like any of the other easements, that all these easements are on the same deed. They're all the easements on the front 9 are on the same deed, the same language. Why does this look so much different than all the other ones? Well, they got up and they kept telling me I was out of order, and then finally they got up and walked. They left me there sitting with my computer, my pictures, my documents, my maps, and walked out of the room without even looking at them. We're not talking to you about that. And they left. And on the way out, I said to him, I said, I'm gonna go get the drainage police. And to preface this, about 2 days before I went into that meeting with Pat Pence Young, Chuck, and Wayne, I called up Maricopa County flood control. And I got a young man on the phone, and we both got on the satellite together, and I gave him the address. He looked at the satellite and the plat map and all this stuff, and he was familiar. He was flood control for Maricopa County. That's where he worked. So he knew the rules. And we looked at this from a satellite shot with this big tree and everything here, and the first thing out of his mouth was, "You're right. It's out of compliance. There shouldn't be trees growing inside there. Okay? There shouldn't be vegetation on there. All right? It's out of compliance." I was tickled. I was so glad that I was out of Buckeye. I finally got somebody outside of Buckeye to tell me this was out of compliance. And I said, "Good, what can we do about it?" And he says, "I can't do anything. Buckeye's out of my jurisdiction. You have to go to Buckeye to fix this." So I went to, right about that time, Craig Hustis was becoming the propaganda minister for Sundance Adult. First of all, he was appointed. He wasn't elected. He was a worker for Buckeye in planning, and instead of electing him, they appointed him to be the supervisor or the councilman for District 5, which includes the golf course Sundance Adult. As soon as he got into that position, he became a mouthpiece for the active adult, because he was putting on the website sometimes 6-7 messages a week, informing, communicating, letting everybody know, "I'm the man. You want anything to know, come to me." He also had on his thing, "I'm an ex-Marine. I served in Vietnam." He really sold himself. So I figured, he's an ex-Marine. I'm an ex-Marine. He might be an adult. If he knows how an M16 works or an M14 gas-operated, semi-operated rifle, he might understand what's going on over here with the drainage. This is not a drain. It's been filled in. I had a guy from Maricopa County tell me that it was out of compliance. And then 2 days later, Pat, Pence Young, Wayne, and Chuck walk out on me like I'm an idiot and leave me sitting there, and we're not talking to you. So I went down to Craig Hustis' office. I brought in all the plat maps, the full-size plat maps. I brought in a bunch of pictures. I showed them. I go, I think this is out of order. I was told by a guy in the Maricopa County that this is out of order. Will you look into it for me, please? Well, I didn't hear from Craig Hustis for about a month and a half. I would have forgot about it probably. I would have said, well, I gave it a shot, and I haven't heard anything. And I was very busy working. I had 2 mortgages to pay off. I had 3 taxes to pay. I had 3 dues to pay. Okay? So I was pretty busy. And I didn't have time to pursue or follow up with Craig Hustis. But about a month and a half, 2 months later, I get an email from Craig Hustis who tells me that the engineer's been out here and he wrote up this as being non-compliant. And that's all I got from Craig Hustis. And he gave me the guy's name, so I kept calling this man's number for about a month and a half. Every time I'd call his number, he wasn't there, I'd hang up. I didn't leave a message. I don't even know if he had a message. But I would call, nobody answered, I'd hang up. Well, after about a month and a half of trying to get a hold of Woody Scouten, who authored the letter, he answered the phone one day, and I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. No shit, you're really there. So I explained to him, I'm the guy that sent Craig Hustis over to you about Tract A and Parcel 12, and Craig has communicated with me that you wrote up a non-compliance letter. He goes, that's right, I did. I said, can I get a copy of that? He said, sure, I'll send it to you. What's your email address? So he sent it to me. Okay? So now I've got this letter from an engineer saying this is out of compliance. You filled it in. It doesn't work anymore. If it's ever needed, the houses in the neighborhood will be threatened by this not being here. Well, I was tickled again. I go, oh my God, there it is. They're going to start digging this out right now. This is the town engineer. This is the top guy, Woody Scouten. Plus, I had all these documents, plat maps, and things like that with his name on them everywhere. Woody Scouten, Woody Scouten, Woody Scouten. So I figured this guy wrote it up. This is going to get fixed. It didn't get fixed. He wrote it up in January of 2012. Or February. He wrote it up February of 2012. And by January of 2013, a year later, they hadn't turned a shovel here. And during that year, I sent letters back and forth to Pat Pence Young. I sent letters to Woody Scouten. I even had a meeting downtown with Woody Scouten. I brought my computer and showed him a bunch of pictures of the yard and everything else. And he said, yeah, okay. He looked at everything. He heard everything. I came home, and still for another 2 months, nothing's being moved. Nothing's happening. All right? A year went by after they wrote the letter. He wrote the letter, immediately restore it. Nothing's happening. Okay? So I went to one of the meetings. They had another meeting, and I went to it. And I was able to corner Pat Pence Young after the meeting, get her alone, face to face with me. And I challenged her. Maybe she was intimidated, or maybe she just got sick of being dishonest. Okay? But she told me face to face when we were alone, she goes, we've done nothing. I said, what about all the letters you've written, all this stuff, all these prompts? She goes, we've done nothing. We've done nothing. So, being an ex-Marine looking for a fight and to establish and to get my way, I was right. I had somebody from Maricopa County say it was out of compliance. I had a letter from the HOA. I had a letter from the head engineer in Buckeye saying, dig it out. He sent it to the HOA. All right? And nothing was being done. So when Pat Pence Young, about a year later, told me we've done nothing, I decided I'm going to try some civil disobedience. I have a plat map that says I can walk here. It says I can walk here. And I know from selling real estate that the plat map is the invoice for the neighborhood. We've got an invoice that says there's a cart path, an emergency, pedestrian, and it's not here. And I've got a letter from a bureaucrat engineer in Buckeye who says it's out of compliance and it's a year old and nothing's being done. So what I decided to do is, in January, every morning, I had just retired from the airline. I had too much time on my hand, and this was starting to bug me. When are you going to open this up? How long are you going to string me? And when Pat Pence Young told me we've done nothing, I said, well, I'm going to do something. I'm going to force the issue. So what I did is every morning for a week, starting at about 9 o'clock, I would walk the full length of this, turn around, and come back. I did that for 4 days. From 9 until 9:30. I'd get up. It was cold in the morning, cold January mornings. Well, the first day I did it, the lady who was parking her car in front of my house saw me doing it, and she immediately got a camera. And for 4 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, she chased me from the patio side of the house to the front side of the house with that camera taking pictures of me walking on this easement. And I was the first one to do it. About a year earlier, when I got that letter from Woody Skelton a year earlier, I walked and I stood under this tree. I was reading the letter. I was looking at the tree. I couldn't believe that somebody would do that. Would do something that would cause an engineer to write a letter. I was looking at this tree right in the middle of the thing going, I can't believe they did that. And guess what? A guy come out of this house, came up to me and said, can I help you? More or less, you're on my property. Can I help you? I went off on him. I told him, I said, you guys have really been, this tree's illegal. Everything I'm looking at here is out of compliance. What a bunch of grifters you guys are. I can't believe you did this. Well, the guy, I believe he's a Shriner. When I see him pulling in his car, he's got a Shriner on his bumper. So he quietly walked back into the house. He didn't fight with me because he knew I got connections. I'll just call up some Shriner buddies, some of my lodge brothers. We'll have this guy taken care of. Well, that was a year before I started walking it. When I first got the letter, I got out, and this guy came out, more or less this Shriner, and let me know, what are you doing here? And if I hadn't have gone off and said, this is illegal, I got a letter that says it's illegal. Well, he couldn't argue with me. He couldn't tell me, you can't walk here. He was about to tell me that I couldn't walk here, and I beat him to the punch. I said, I'm walking here because this is a walking easement. It's illegal. I got a letter that says it's out of compliance. How about getting out of my face? All right? Just like that. Sorry, but I've been paying tribute to the HOA and this idiot here and the idiot here. I've been paying tribute to them for 8 years on 3 houses. I had 3 houses that I was paying dues, taxes. I even paid the sidewalk assessment on all 3 houses. All right? Only to say that for the first 8 years I was here, I was paying tribute to their welfare entitlement. Okay? And not having any use of it. Not only did I not have any use of it, nobody did. Nobody. It was conscripted. It was graft. They took something that belonged to everybody and gave it to these 2 people as a privately owned lot that they could tell people that nobody can walk there. They were getting their tree watered for free. They were getting all their plants watered for free. The thing was tax-free. All right? Welfare. Sorry I'm getting wound up. And thank you for listening if you're still with me. But I want to do this for the membership of the HOA. It don't look like this anymore. I get bragging rights. I'm like Donald Trump saying, I'm the reason that abortion, Roe versus Wade. I'm the guy that turned over Roe versus Wade. Well, by me getting hold of Craig Eustace and then him getting hold of the engineer, Woody Skelton, all right, I became Donald Trump. I exposed this. And when they didn't do anything for a year, I pushed it. I walked here every day for a week. Every morning I started Monday morning. I walked to the end to here, the end to here, the end to here for half an hour. Ann Lofdahl chased me from the backyard to the front yard for 4 days with her camera. Nobody saw it as me exercising my right to use this access easement. They had told me it's not an access easement. They told me, don't worry about the plat map. The plat map is wrong. It's not an access easement. So when I started walking it, and when she sent the pictures into the HOA of me walking here, it was considered provocation. You're provoking your neighbors. You're provoking your neighbors. And you're peeking in windows. And there's a video out there. It's called Fatso, Schoolyard or HOA Bully Fatso. Watch it. If you get a chance, watch it. And it'll explain how Fatso told everybody that I pushed the cop. That I was peeking in people's windows for 4 hours a day. That I walked this 4 hours a day peeking in people's windows. And that I beat up a 90-year-old man over a golf ball that walked onto my lot. You want to talk about embellishing a story? That's the same way as Charlie Waters telling the police I had to be taken out of a meeting once, where I never did. It's embellishment. It's lying. It's dishonesty. But I wanted to let everybody, and especially you, Caroline, you weren't here when all this went down. You were totally in the dark. And another thing of the irony, when I went in to get gutters for my house, Pat Pence Young told me it was a drain. If Pat Pence Young hadn't have told me it was a drain, I would have had nothing to go by. All right? But when I found out it was a drain and I saw it was plugged up, well, anyway, the way I found the permit for my house was the same way. Caroline Clinton came in after Pat Pence Young. And to Caroline Clinton, I'm going to tell you personally right now, you gave me the permit. You gave me the actually stamped permit for my house. I've been looking for that for 1.5 years. I went to downtown Buckeye and they wouldn't give it to me. They said they didn't have them. But when I went in to get the gutters and I met you for the first time, you got ambushed. You got ambushed because nobody told you that I was public enemy #1 over in Parcel 12. You treated me like a human being. You really did. You haven't treated me like a human being since. I've been an adversary because when they found out that more or less, when they told you, eventually they had to tell you. You were helping me. You even helped me in the meeting the day when my gutters got approved. Because David Stump questioned the painting of the gutters. What about the paint colors? Are they going to match? And you stepped up, Caroline, and said they're powder coated. If he has to paint them, it'll void his warranty. That was the last time Carolyn ever took my side out here. I'm sure that when I walked out of that meeting that day, that David Stump and everybody on the board told Carolyn Clinton, never, ever, ever stand up for him again. It's your job. It's your job. If you ever help him, support him, say anything in his defense or his support, you won't be working here anymore. You understand your job depends on assassinating his character and defaming him. We don't want him in our HOA. Okay? He's caused us a lot of grief. And our two favorite people, I want to tell you what was established here when this tree was here. This was pecking order. This tree, this thing was redlined. It was segregated. It was taken out of service. It was co-opted. It was stolen fair and square. All right? And these people benefited from it. Their equity was so high, they could tell everybody, we own all this. And my equity got gutted. Because my equity was, I was expecting there was going to be a golf cart easement here. But anyway, we'll see how this came out. This is quite long, too long. Anybody, I'm hoping that people are starting to watch my videos. Some of them have got over 2,000 hits on the HOA. And a lot of people are making favorable comments. I get very few negative comments, a lot of favorable comments. And I'll let you know, Caroline, and your lawyers, you may beat me in court. And I may have to pay money, monetary damages. You're going to beat me in court because the court's on your side. And I'm not a lawyer. But I guarantee you, videos like this are just going to keep rolling out of me. The people here in Sundance, Active Adult, the members, are going to, if they ever find out who I am and they start watching me, I'm going to keep producing videos. You might win in court, but I'm going to win in the court of public opinion. Everybody is going to know the graft that took place out here. Okay? This is Buckeye. Buckeye, outside the 12-mile limit, a territory. See this house right here? My house I was living in, I had a thing to put up a flag. I don't fly my flag in Buckeye. I will never fly my flag in Buckeye. Buckeye arrested me and threw me in jail for 4 days for missing a court date that I never got served on because they thought, because the HOA told the town of Buckeye and the police in Buckeye and the judge in Buckeye who issued the bench warrant that he's provoking his neighbors. They've had this for 8 years privately all to themselves. They've had it all to themselves for 8 or 9 years. And now he's trying to bust up the continuity of the neighborhood. Well, it's the old thing. Forgiveness is easier to get than permission. When Woody Scout and that letter surfaced to the HOA, Charlie Waters made a big investment. He took a lot of money and gave it to Jackie Meck's favorite charity. He was forgiven. They didn't have permission to do this, but when he gave that balloon payment to Jackie Meck when the letter showed up, he was given forgiveness. Now, a year later, they hadn't touched this. A year had gone by, they hadn't touched it. And I had all kinds of correspondence between Pat Pence Young and Woody Scouten that, hey, we're looking into it, we're going to fix it. They never did. Now, there's a lot of redundancy in this little lecture, this little spiel. I say things over and over and over again, but everybody here was drinking Kool-Aid. This was Jonestown. Not one person in this whole parcel except me challenged this. Nobody. They have their block parties up the street and they tell everybody, if we open that up, we won't have any security. We have to keep the neighborhood safe by keeping this closed. Okay? They've been passing on that bullshit, that propaganda now for 10 years. Ever since the letter came out, and I went to a meeting and I talked to Craig Hustis at a meeting. And I approached him, I took him aside and I said, I've got a lot more information than I did before about Tract A. I've got a lot more information about it now. I've got my permit and everything. Craig Hustis said, please don't come to my office. Please don't come to my office with all and start trouble. And he said, besides, I did a survey over in your neighborhood, and nobody in your neighborhood wants this. They don't want to see Tract A change. I did a survey. You didn't survey me. I'm a dues paying person who was paying dues on 3 houses. I had 3 houses up here paying dues on and taxes on, and you won't survey me. You surveyed this person, you surveyed that person, you surveyed the Lofdals. They all agreed we don't want to change this. We have a hierarchy, we have a pecking order, we have a monarchy. A monarchy, okay? We're more important than everybody else, and this guy are bucolic investors. They're from the country. They think they can bring their country with them in an urban model. This is an urban model. A lot of engineers went through a lot of time designing this drainage, designing everything all the way to the lake for a ground wire. The ground wire is gone. They made me the ground wire. Everything was going to go through here. I'm the new ultimate outfall elevation. Now this is quite a spiel, and if you've stayed with me and you've listened to me the whole time, thank you very much. If you make a comment or you write a comment favorably, thank you very much. I'm not going to be answering your comments. I'm a little too busy. I got a $60,000 fine going against me by the people who run the HOA, and then Caroline Clinton hired lawyers to bring a lawsuit against me. So I've got it coming front and back. A lawsuit and fines. $100 a day fine. The human factors. I've had 2 courses in human factors, one at United Airlines and one at US Air. I was a week in human factors class in United Airlines. And when I say jealousy, envy, contempt, good old boys, nepotism, racketeering, it's all there in human factors. This is Trump before Trump. This all happened in 2003. But it's the same people who are Trump people. Midwest morons. Midwest morons who don't like urban people. They don't like urban plans. When they come in here, that urban plan has to go away. We want our farm with us. We want the same privacy we have back home. Even though these are the biggest lots in the parcel, and they're the biggest because we have to deal with pedestrians and golf carts, we're not going to deal with them. We're going to use our political interests with our lodge brothers. Our lodge brothers. When I see Mason and Schreiner stickers on the cars in this lot, it don't take me long to figure out. My father was a Mason. I grew up in a Masonic house. For about 15 years of my life, I had to go to a father and son banquet with my dad. It was the only day of the year that he was proud to take me or my brother anywhere, was the father and son banquet. All right, where we sing songs and pledge allegiance and all this other stuff. All right, I've been there, I've done it. Okay, as far as I'm concerned, the Masons are the Protestant mafia. I've been inside the Protestant mafia. I know what they're all about, and I know what they're capable of. All right, secret society stuff. This has got Masons, Ku Klux Klan, the swastika, you name it. It's all right here. This is what you're looking at. Skim, Graft. We stole it fair and square. And Now I've got a record where I went to jail for missing a court date I never got served on, and I'm being sued to the tune of $60,000, and I've got a lawsuit against me. Why? Because it's retaliation, because this isn't here no more. This isn't here anymore. Like Donald Trump, I'll sell you like Donald Trump. I'm the reason this isn't here anymore. I'm the person who got the due diligence, the maps, went and got Craig Houston, he got Woody Skelton, and that's why we have a decertification letter against this. Thank you for listening.